I'm really excited to be bringing you a demo of this game, Mork Borg, which is newly available from, well, from these folks and Freely Publishing. I'll show you the credits here. I attempting to pronounce this correctly, but I don't want to mangle it too much. So here's a look at the credits, and this is the third printing of the book, which I purchased pretty easily. And the indication here that Mork Borg is Swedish for dark fort and is pronounced Mork Borg. I did my best. Looking here at the playtesting credits, proofreading, editing, the translation credits, and the thanks, printed in Latvia in 2020. This is an absolutely beautifully produced volume, and it says on the back here in explanation, a doom metal album of a game, a spiked flail to the face, rules light, heavy everything else. Pretty cool. One day all will blacken and burn, just as the two-headed basilisks have predicted. There's two of them, by the way, in the game. The world is dying, time is short. How will you face these last days? Robbing graves for soil-stained wealth, or facing down the apocalypse, hoping it can be fought? What I plan to do in this video is to take up the life and times of Littona Parfait. Littona Parfait was created in a prior video that I was doing demoing Into the Odd, and you can see the link to that video up here. It is not necessary that you have watched that video to enjoy this one at all. I'll be bringing everyone up to speed on everything, but for those that did watch that video, we're going to be taking up the exploits of Littona Parfait in this video. Who is she? Well, she was a member of the aristocracy who was fighting against some organized riots in the world, and at the very end of that video, she was in a hunter's tower and opened up a box, and inside the box was the ghostly spirit of her childhood friend Leary, the lamplighter. And they had been separated through time, whether it was because of a forbidden love or what, we don't know. But she opened up the box, and the vortex, this ghostly spiral, was inside, and it was him there. He was either trapped or captured, and she was attempting to decide, should she jump into the box? Should she jump away? What was going to happen? And that's where we ended that video. Well, she is going to be transformed into this world, this beautiful, decaying, ugly world, both beautiful and ugly, of this game. And I will read you a little bit of the lore here, but we're going to, antithetical to what I typically do, which is to develop an environment first. We're going to move to transfer Littona over to who she would be in this world, and then find out exactly where she is in the world. We do have a map here of the world, and I will read you once we find out where we are going to be in this map, I will read you the description of it. But what you need to know was described on the back of the book, which is that this is a world of decay, of horror, and of desperation on some level. The first thing that we're going to do is to figure out that Littona Parfait in this world is going to be, her class is going to be that of wretched royalty. That is what transfers the most to the fact that she was an ascended person in the other world that had somehow been brought to despair and to some type of forbidden existence because she had dropped in estimation of the aristocrats that ruled the world. So she's going to be wretched royalty, and she's going to begin with 4d6 times 10 silver. So let's give that a roll, and that's not going to work. Let's give that a roll and see how much silver she starts with. We're going to end up purchasing her equipment after we find out exactly what she is here for. And all right. I found the best dice I could. So she's going to end up with 4d10 worth of silver. And in case you thought I was fudging the roll, definitely was not. So that's a terrible roll. So she's going to have only 13 times 10 silver to her name. So didn't end up escaping with a whole lot of money. So she'll have 130 silver. She has D2 omens. Omens in this game are like fate or like re-roll, basically. You can use omens. Let's see. Let's review what you can use omens actually for. The book is short, but it's not necessarily intuitively arranged. So, omens. Clearly, the eyes of other powers are upon you. Eldritch watchers of the tangled fates of alternate worlds. Call it luck if you like. Every class gains a number of omens, and that is us. In our class, we can use it to deal maximum damage with one attack, or re-roll a die roll, yours or someone else's, or lower the damage dealt to us, or neutralize a crit or a fumble, or lower your test by a difficulty rating of -4. And we will see when we get to actually looking at the rules, I'll explain the implication of that. So it's either going to be, 1 or 2, even or odd. So unfortunately, with as our luck here, we have only 1 omen as opposed to 2. And Littna's not starting out so great here. Moving back here, her hit points is going to be her toughness plus a d6 roll. So we'll make a note of that and then go to her hit points we have yet to determine. And now we will begin to roll up her actual attributes and her stats therein. So I guess they're called abilities here. Abilities. So we have agility, presence, which is perception, aim, charm, to wield powers, strength, toughness. And it's a 3d6, and then we're using the table here. We're really actually only referring to the modifier, not to the actual number. So we're just going to take these as it goes. There's no sense here that we can actually move these stats around. So I'm just going to go down the line and roll that way and take the numbers that I get. And so I'm showing you the rolling here that I did, but after I did all this rolling, I realized when I turned back to the class description that indeed for this class, you do not roll the specific attributes. You just take what they are with no modifier. The only thing that I think, although the rules were a little bit vague to me, that you do need to roll is the toughness, because the toughness is the number that you use to determine your hit points. So we're going to come in where I was rolling the toughness. And finally, our toughness here, well, we did actually need to make note of that strength of 12. And this is bad, 6, 7. So we are not tough. Maybe we've been worn down, between that other video and here. We've been worn down. So basically, we're just kind of average. And in fact, indeed, back to our class description, it says as much, really. Bow down only by the memories of your own lost glory. You could never submit to anyone else, not you of noble blood. Painfully average. You adjust no abilities. Roll a d8 on the weapons table. We'll get to that now. Roll a d4 on the armor table, but re-roll if you receive heavy armor. You begin with 2 of the following. So actually, I'm realizing that I think what this means is I did not even need to roll for those abilities. So we're just average, which is going to help us a little bit on the toughness. We have no modifiers whatsoever. We will start with 2 of these items. We're going to get back to that, but let's go first to but we would have had to roll for toughness because we need to see our HP. So our toughness roll was, forget, I'll have to go back and look. So we are going to have to account for that to come up with our HP. Let us go back to the weapons table, which is, you'll see it's a D10 table, and this is somewhat indicative of the great art direction of the book, questionable in terms of how clear it is. So you can see here that the rolls here are 1, 2, 3, 4, And then coming onto this page, 8, 9, and 10, what you can possibly roll for, although we are instructed we're only allowed to roll a d8, so we're not going to have the opportunity to get either the crossbow or the, see, it's just so hard to read what this is, whatever that is. But nevertheless, we're going to do our d8 roll for our weapon. Let's hope we get something. We got a 4. We got a knife, and it does d4 of damage, so she's got her knife. And that does a d4 damage. And we will roll now for our armor. And again, only we're instructed, it's just a d4 table to start with. But, it says only d2 if you begin with a scroll. Now, this was a little questionable to me, confusing, because so scrolls are the magic. And I'm glad I saw that because I am going to want to take a scroll. I think we can begin with a scroll if we buy a scroll. And the scroll, well, here under equipment, it says it's worth roughly 50 silver to the right buyer. So I'm going to assume that we can just buy it. We did have 130 silver, and I think that that's what we want to do. There are scrolls. Well, we'll get to that. So you know what? We're not going to roll any kind of d4 here. We're simply going to roll a d2. I will find something to do that with. All right, we're going to go this way instead of the other way. So this is actually a d3. So if we get a 3, we will re-roll, and we got a 2. So we got some. At least we got that. Some light armor. Fur, padded cloth, leather, etc. It does a d2 minus d2 damage. It's tier 1, and it either, well, we're getting this, I think. Again, slightly unclear. I don't think we have to purchase it. I think we just get it. At least that's where I'm going to go with this. Maybe we could sell it for 20 silver. I don't know. We're going to say we have some type of light armor, maybe some type of fur or some such, and it does a minus d2 of damage, and it's a tier 1. All right, we're not going to be selling that, I doubt. The carrying capacity for scrolls, crowbars, and torches, you can carry strength plus 8 normal-sized items without a problem. But the chests, anvils, ladders, corpses is going to be, we are going to have to know our carry capacity, so we should probably give that a roll, which means I'm going to have to look back and see what our actual roll on the strength value was. Well, actually our strength was 12, so I guess our carry capacity is 20. Our carry capacity is 20, and it's our hit points that I need to, I got to get the HP down. All right, let me figure that out. All right, so we now have confirmed our toughness was a 7, and again, I think it's just a little ambiguity here, because if we're not meant to adjust any abilities, I mean, I guess we're meant to roll for them, but do no adjustment anyway. We got a 7 for toughness, so our HP is going to be a 7 plus a d6, and let's hope for the best here. Great. All right, so we have that. We have 13 HP, and I'm assuming it's the actual toughness roll, not the modifier. So that's what how I'm going to go with it. And I think now I think we've got Littona Parfait up to speed. Oh no, not quite. Because of course, in this world, Littona Parfait she's going to have an alias. And her alias is going to be from the Lost Soul's name. This is a d6 and a d8 roll. Wish I had a better d8 to go for this, but I can't find one now. So we've got a 4 and an 8. She's going to be Margar. So Littona Parfait, for the purposes from now on, is going to be traveling under the name Margar. She has come into the world as Margar, and we're going to continue to outfit her. Let's go back to, we skipped over this actually. She is going to begin with 2 of the following items. This is a d6 table, and so we will roll 2d6, reading the numbers individually. Well, we rolled doubles. Oh, 1 and a 6. How likely is that? All right, let's see what we got. Margar. The blade of her ancestors, this magnificent and clearly magical talking sword, is foppish, unreliable, and quietly despises you. It taunts your failures and, if continually disappointed, develops a 1 in 6 chance to accidentally attack you or your companions. Great. Deals d6 plus 1 damage, and its attack defense difficulty rating is 10. We have not gone over the rules yet. I will do that momentarily. So she has a blade of her ancestors, and this does tie in with her backstory in the sense that she is someone who has rebelled against her family and as such has become an outcast. And so perhaps when she left, she stole this blade from her ancestors, and maybe that is why it is sometimes goes against her, because it is perhaps still aligned with the rest of her family. And she is also carrying the horn of the Schleswig lords. Once per day, release a blare from this dented old trumpet and test presence D. Difficulty rating 12. One creature may make their next non-combat test an automatic success. So I guess this is referring to us, although this is again confusing. Although I don't know if in this case it's referred to us as creatures or those against us, but in any case we will make a note that we have this horn. So we have Margar outfitted, and with that we will do a very brief rules overview to explain how many things function in this game. We saw that her modifiers are basically nil. As such, she is going to be simply rolling a d20 with no modification when she attempts to do something, and against a difficulty rating. And she's going to either need to equal or excel the difficulty rating. So this is going to be tough for her because normal is at 12. So, well, there we got a 17, but we're going to have to be rolling basically a 12 or greater to do anything. And if things are difficult, I mean, that's going to be tough because we have no modifier. So that's the basic rule. And the other rules of note, combat. So for example, in combat, if we're doing melee combat, we have that dagger. To see if we succeed, we've got to test our strength. On the combat side of things, we see that if she wants to, for example, use her melee weapon, which is her dagger, she needs to do a strength test at a D12. So to have a success, of course I'm rolling them now, but she's got to roll a 12 or greater on that D20 with no modifiers. So that is, not great, not great. If we get to combat, we will we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. The last thing that I want to say before, and we do have, when we have encounters, there's a 2d6 reaction table. The last thing I want to say in terms of right now with Margar is that there is a provision in the book, and it is back here, about to find it, for having followers. And it says the GM makes a morale check from time to time to see whether the follower will stay with you. There are 4 possible followers indicated here, and this pale one is standing out to me because we know that Margar's childhood friend Leary has left her in some way, is deceased. We came upon this when we last left her, this ghostly spiral in this vortex. She's going to jump into this chest, I think, to follow who this is. And I'm going to say that this is Leary, the pale one. So we're going to bring this follower in with her and just go with its stats of a 5 HP, a morale of 8, no armor, and I guess as unarmed it does D2 damage. It says, as if fallen from the stars, the pale ones fit in nowhere. This unwilling alienation makes them destructive and detached. They have, let's give them a trait. It's a D4 trait, and let's see, what is their trait? They're incoherent. Well, that says to me that they're detached from her, and we can't quite make out the message that they are trying to send to us, because we believe that this childhood friend in some way was either the stealer of a treasure or the bestower of a treasure or something that involves that she is lacking that will bring her back from being the wretched royalty to her full stature, but we can't quite make the connection to what that is, and that's why they're incoherent. And the specialty once a day, create, so we rolled a 2, create D2 doses of elixir of Vitalis, heals 6 HP and stops infection. Well, that's great. So let's see. We're gonna start out with that, which will be helpful. And we're gonna say we get a D2. Well, we have 1 vial of this, and we have D6 of their values. I don't know what that means. Wine. Well, they value wine. Okay. So the wine, I think, is going to perhaps symbolize the carefree nature of their original connection. The pale one is somehow beckoning her in this chest, and she's going to jump through the chest. And we are going now to just point out, I am going to be bringing in this Ask the Stars table. This came from, I'll put the link up here if I can find it. It came from the blog of the creator of Into the Odd, and I used it in the Into the Odd video, and I'm going to use it again here because what it gives you is you have D12 if you're asking a question with some answers, and then it also gives you this symbol and position and just thematic and generative words that can help create a narrative. So I guess before we go to, my sense is, she's going to jump into this. She's going to jump into this chest, but I guess we're going to go to this to ask with what theme, feeling, emotion does she jump through the chest, and then we will find out where she ends up. So we got a 6, and this is, we have the eye is the symbol, and bowed is the position, judgment and secrets, and submission and mercy. So this says to me that indeed in the chest are the secrets that she is going to seek to find from her friend Leary, perhaps, and that the submission or mercy, perhaps she's meant to go save him. Perhaps that is the situation of the pale one, that she is going to find him. She's going to jump through into the world of this game, and we have a table somewhere that's going to tell us where she lands, and that table is, well, actually, before she lands there, before she jumps through it, I realized a couple of things. She didn't spend her money. She didn't get her scroll. She didn't get her magic. I got tied up with the follower. So she needs to do that. And back to the general player creation here, we did not do these roles either. This is when you create the character without the specific class, but I think we still do it. So we're gonna resume here, filling out her character, getting her scroll, and then she will jump through and we'll find out where she lands. All right, it says, in this world there are those who seek riches or redemption. Some say the apocalypse is escapable, that it might even be stopped, and there you walk in discord and despair. On the one hand, you have silver, and the other hand, you have water skin and D4 days worth of food. Your soul and your silver are your own, and equally easy to lose. To begin with, you are what you own. And there are some brief tables here. Now, again, I'm not clear whether we're meant to roll on these as well when we did the class start as we did, but we're going to do it and move forward. We have a donkey, not bad, or one of the choice of the above. Well, I think I'm just going to take a sack. I'm going to take a sack instead of the donkey because that seems to make more sense to me. If you know my channel, you know I'm probably not going to spend a ton of time on what I consider to be maintenance activities like sleeping, or in this case, maybe even traveling. So we reached a 7 here. Oh, a medicine chest. That's awesome. I was going to buy one of those. Presence plus 4 uses. It stops bleeding, infection, and heals 6 HP. And we get another D12. We rolled a 4. They really want us to have monkeys. Monkeys that ignore you but love you. Well, you know what? That's going to be an additional fighter on our behalf. D4 plus 2 HP, punch bite of a D4. So, all right, we have 4 monkeys, 4 donkeys. No, 4 monkeys. Oh my God, we have 4 monkeys. We have 4 monkeys. D4 plus 2 HP. That's like looking up. All right, monkey number 1 has, what did it say? D4 plus 2. All right, I'm going to do this roll off camera. Monkey 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we ended up with 4 monkeys with just a bunch of 5, 4, 3, and 6 HP. That seems a little bit crazy. Now we turn to the magic. It says scrolls are the twisted magic of this world, and they cost 50 silver each, and they have powers. And magic is, you have to call forth the magic by rolling presence plus d4 every morning to determine how many times you can use the powers that day, and then you can choose from your available scrolls. But when you read the scroll, you have to test your presence at a difficulty rating of 12, and if you succeed, the power is activated, and if you fail, you lose D2 HP and become dizzy for the next hour. So they have unclean scrolls and sacred scrolls, and it's also a D10. It's very unclear to me when you purchase whether you have the choice or whatever. And also, I mean, it all seems to be the same. Some of the benefits are a lot greater than others. With my 130 silver, I'm actually only going to purchase 1 scroll. I could afford 2, but as you'll see, I'm going to hang on to some of my silver. So my choice, an unclean scroll, which is like a D2 creatures dealing D8 damage, which is basically a ball of fire. I'm liking that one. It is, I don't want to do a random here because, well, I feel like I don't know if I should do a random. I'm going to just choose this. So I'm going to take this Palms Open the Southern Gate for my unclean scroll spell, and that is leaving me with 80 silver. And we're going to go back to the equipment, and I will show you what I'm going to choose with that. I could take 2 scrolls and have, I could make it simple and take 2 scrolls and have left over 30 silver for a bribe. I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with this Nokian syntax. One creature blindly obeys a single command. I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to take the Sacred Scroll 10 and the Unclean Scroll 1 and have my 30 silver for a bribe. And now we're going to learn a teeny bit more about this world. There are prophecies, and I'm going to show you really clever, first of all, beautiful silver foil here printing. The world trembles. One can feel it in many ways, sharp and subtle, mysterious and clear. One by one, inevitable events demand their place. Illustrating this, the GM rolls a die each dawn. A result of 1 activates 1 misery. The die used is determined by the GM and the group. The GM then rolls D66 to determine which misery occurs. The same misery will not befall the world twice. Well, and it's written in this kind of biblical way. This is a D66 table. This is so cool that I have to roll on it. We're just going to say that there is a misery here, and you can see how it's broken down 1 through 6, and then within that, and a D66 table is one of my favorite tables anyway, and I think the implementation of that is just so super thematic and great. So we're going to take our 2 different D6s here, and we will read them, the black and the white, and we have rolled a 1 and a 4. And the depths of the underworld shall bring forth flying scepters and crawling beasts. In their passing the worm grows fat, the vulture weary. So the underworld is bringing forth something into our world, and in fact this is a prophecy, or I should say where we are is confirming the prophecy, because as we know, we are standing in front of the open chest that we are going to jump through, where our pale friend, Leary, our childhood friend, has been transformed into the Pale One who is waiting for us. And what will we find when we jump through? We see here the D12 table that asks the question, where do you wander? And we are going to answer that question now to determine where we are wandering. We are wandering at the city wall of Gallenbeck. And I believe all of this is referenced in the map here, which we will take a look at. And hopefully we'll get a description. Gallenbeck is right here in the middle. We are at the city walls. Here it is. Gallenbeck in the land of Tviland is the greatest city that ever was. No king or queen rules here, but an archpriestess. Deep beneath the cathedral of the two-headed basilisks, in a cool black chamber crossed by shards of light, lies her throne. She is old but still young. Commoners gossip that she colludes with the god Necrubel, who gave her eternal life. Necrubel is the shadow that covers all. Necrubel is melancholy, crop failure, conflict, and war. It is said he whispered the apocalyptic prophecies in Verhu's ear. Verhu is one of the two-headed basilisks, one head of the two-headed basilisks, I believe. That is a prophecy giver, maker. And here it says, we come to the beginning of the lore of this world, that the monk of the Cretan order encountered this basilisk Veru in the year 565 and set down that creature's whispered prophecies. Those lost texts came to be known as the Nameless Scriptures. 300 years later, while working on a new cathedral, the two-headed basilisks, an orthodox branch of the Cretan order, uncovered this tomb and with it the scriptures. Since then, all events described within have come to pass. The prophecies are absolutely factually true and have thus supplanted all other scripture. Around this cathedral has grown this city, the greatest city that ever was. And it says the basilisks are two and two-headed. The four heads have argued for hundreds of years. Veru predicts inexorable annihilation, and since he's always right, has become utterly full of himself. His is also the head worshipped most. If you could learn the codes of the apocalypse, perhaps the right offerings might avert it. Veru loves his position and hungers for temples to be raised in his name. So, we are here in this city. We have arrived at the gates of the city as we jumped through the chest into this other world. And we know that it is a place of conflict and war and melancholy. And as we move through the city gates, we will do so seeking freedom and accompanied by death and the memory of our friend. As Margar enters the cathedral area, I want to do a morale roll to see if the Pale One is still with us. Now, this is a rule really for enemies, but I'm adapting it here. We rolled above the morale of 8 for the Pale One, and so now we need to determine whether or not he is still with us. And in fact, per the rules, he has fleed. He's flown the coop from us. So I said earlier that we came in with him, but the suggestions I've been getting from the narrative as we've developed it, that the depths of the underworld are coming forth, I think is concerned me, and I think indeed the Pale One as our follower has been taken away, perhaps into the cathedral. Perhaps this is where we're going to go in search of him or her, in search of Leary. But before we do that, there's something else that I need to do, and it may seem a little odd, but we are, as you recall, traveling with these 4 monkeys that we picked up along the way who had some HP. And what I want to try to do is I want to first of all see how many powers we can use today, because I have this concept of using one of my magic scrolls to to do something with these monkeys that are traveling with us. I certainly don't really want them along for the ride. So what we're going to do, first of all, we need to do the roll to test to see how much power we have for the day. And that roll is basically we roll our presence plus a d4 to see how many times we can use our powers for the day. And as we note, we have no modifiers on the roll. So we got a 3. So we will be able to use 3 powers today, or I should say, use power 3 times today. And the first thing I want to try to do is, you recall that we are carrying this Nokian syntax scroll. One creature blindly obeys a single command. I want to attempt to use this scroll, which is this is a presence test, and the difficulty rating is 12. So basically what this means is I need to roll a 12 or greater with no modifier. Oh, wow, okay. I needed to roll a 12 or greater, and I have no modifier to my presence to have this Nokian syntax work, and it is going to work. And what I am doing with it is, it says one creature blindly obeys a single command. I'm commanding the 6 HP monkey that is with me. I rolled those up off camera. I think I indicated in an earlier segment that I have these 4 monkeys, and they have HP of 5, 4, 3, and 6. My command was to the 6 HP monkey to transform itself into some type of elixir that's going to go in my sack that I'm carrying, or it could be an additional to this medicine chest to grant me potentially recovery of 6 HP. So that is happening. So this monkey is transforming itself, and I'm going to make a note here that now I will have an additional 6 HP potential to call upon in that medicine chest. And so that one monkey is gone. So that was the first thing that I wanted to do. The next thing that I wanted to, and that was, I got to make use, that was one use of my power. The next thing I want to do is, you may recall, I'm also carrying this item that I got as part of my class. Now this is the sort of strange part here. I'm carrying this horn, this dented old trumpet. I can test my presence on a difficulty rating of 12, and if I succeed, one creature may make their next non-combat test an automatic success. Basically, I'm going to try to use this horn very quietly, because I'm sort of standing here in the courtyard. I want to enter the cathedral. Very quietly, I'd see if we can roll another d12, or excuse me, roll another 12 or greater to essentially command my second monkey, my 5 HP monkey, to do some sort of, we'll call it a non-combat test, and also transform himself into my bag. And we'll see if that works, and it did. So that's cool. So we got basically 11, and that was the use. Well, that wasn't actually a power, was it? That was just using my item. So I still have my 2 power left. I now have 11 HP potential extra somewhere in my sack that I can call upon moving forward. But I still have these 2 monkeys, and I'm going to let them scamper away. I don't want to deal with managing the monkeys, and they perhaps saw they don't even need to do a morale roll. They saw the transformation of their fellow kin into magic power, and they scampered away. So that is how Margar has dealt with these 2 monkeys. She's not interested in, frankly, traveling around with them anymore. But we will make the additions to her items here and see where she goes. Now, of course, Margar can't simply just saunter into the cathedral. There's a guard here, and we're going to do a basic reaction roll here to see how the guard deals with her. He apparently did not see her and her monkeys before now, but has seen her, and his reaction is a 5. He is angered. Well, who wouldn't be? Of course he's angered. So is this meaning combat is going to occur? Is it? Is it? Let's see. The guard here is going to be He's going to be a crooked guard. Well, actually, I should have seen how many of them there are. There's D4 guards, so we'll see. I've got represented by one. There's 2 guards here, and let's find another. So Margar is attempting to enter the gates of the cathedral, and finds herself facing 2 angry guards. And the stats on these guys I'm taking from the included introductory dungeon crawl, The Shadow King's Lost Heir, that comes with the book. I'm not going to be necessarily playing through that, but there are some crooked guards here. They have an HP each of 8, a morale of 7. They're wearing some leather armor. They've got a sword, and I guess they do damage to the femur. That, again, slightly unclear to me. In any event, they're crooked, so we're going to try to bribe them. We have those 30 silver, you recall, because I ended up just with the 2 scrolls. Now, the bribery, let's see if there's a rule for that per se. So as far as I can tell, the only bribery rule here under services is it says to bribe a guard between 20 and 40 silver. I've got 30. So the question is this going to be enough? And I think to do that, I'm going to do a test, I think. We're going to call it a difficulty rating. What are we going to use here? We're going to test, I guess, with our presence. It doesn't really matter because we actually don't have any. Yeah, presence. Perceive, aim, charm, wield powers. And we are going to, listen, they're crooked, so I'm going to call that normal because they're crooked. So we're going to test presence 12 and see, are they going to accept the 30 money that we have for, is that going to be enough to let us in here? And if it's not, I guess we're going to be doing some combat. Now, you know what? Let me step back a minute. Actually, the reaction was angry, so because they're angry, I'm gonna bump up the difficulty rating to be fair and faithful to the story here, because they are angry, so it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. I got to get a 14 or greater to bribe them, and indeed I did. And as I was rolling it, I realized I could have and would have used my 1 omen to re-roll if that didn't work. But I got the 19. They're going to take my silver, and we're going to make a note of that on my character sheet. And they're going to let us in. They're probably not going to do much more than that. So she's going to be able to step into the cathedral, and she is going to do some investigation and looking around to find her friend. Now, as I mentioned, I'm trying to stick as much as possible to the material just in this one book so that you can see how it is workable and what can be developed. So there is no interior cathedral per se. We do have a corridor. We could be walking in this corridor, and there's a hidden pit trap here. Now, again, this is written for a group, but just as a demo to try to show you the ways to use material that you are given. It says, with enough light and a successful difficulty rating 14 presence test, the angular lines are visible, and if not, we will fall into the trap for d6 damage. I think it's fair to say that as we walk in here, there is a trap, so we're going to see if our luck holds. Are we going to avoid this trap or not? Again, we're needing a 14 or a but. Wow, our luck is holding. All right, so we skirted by the trap. I feel like I'm using up my good rolls here. And we are walking forward. We're going to be looking around, and let's see, what might we find? There are not a ton of random tables, which is a pity in a way, because it is so possible to develop story, as you can see, I hope, yet for other source material, there's not quite a lot here. We could find a broken body. There's a broken bodies. There's actually a couple of broken bodies tables here. And there's the corpse plundering table, and then there is this broken body D20 table. I'm not sure why those are two different things, and I think that's mostly it for what I'm going to get strictly from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the one other thing that I've been using, the Into the Stars Oracle, just to get a sense of sort of a feeling or some sort of a guide, if there is one, from this. And we haven't used this yet for the asking a question, but let us now do so. Let us now ask the question, are we going to find Leary here? That is to say, in this cathedral, and I will read the answer, and then I will read across to see if we get any narrative direction from that. So it's a D12, and so the question is, are we going to find Leary here in the whoops? Are we going to find Leary here in the cathedral? The roll was a 6, and no, we're definitely not. What we are going to find here, well, we're coming up with the I, judgments and secrets, or submission and mercy. And my feeling is I rolled this earlier, so it's a circular thing. So we are here, we're not going to find Leary here. So the question is, are we going to continue on in the cathedral adventuring, or are we going to go elsewhere? Now, just as a pause here, as a discussion, if I were not playing this for the channel, what I would do at this point, and possibly what I would have already done, would be to go to an outside source for something. If I wanted to stay in the cathedral, I would go to an outside source that would give me some random tables to generate a room, an environment, objects, or whatever. That would be one possibility that I would do. If I really wanted to stick to this book, what I could do is say, well, I'm going to go down into the depths of the cathedral, and I don't know if this would completely be thematic, but there are some random encounters here that I could roll up, and I could have this be underneath the cathedral or a part of the cathedral and just sort of run through this provided adventure. There are some rolling here for other types of dungeons or rooms with a little bit of random tables for you and some rationale, some adventure sparks. But that would be in a sense for this video, a little bit grasping at straws, because so far I've been able to, with just this source material, get the story, I think, pretty consistently narrated in terms of what is happening and what Margar, aka Littona Parfait is trying to do. But there is a point in source material where one source material is not necessarily enough. And if you're going to be practicing any type of solo RPGing for any amount of time, you will find that eventually you're going to need some source material. And this is why I've done and continue to do periodically on the channel videos that present various options for source material, because ultimately at a point that becomes necessary. But for right here, right now, to try to just show you, which was my intent going in, how much could be coming right out of this one book, and using just this one oracle table that came from Littona's earlier story, I think I have reached the place at which that would need to stop. Again, I could go to start to map out something from the included dungeon and say she was crawling through there and having these encounters and dealing with these people. Or I could go to, and that's probably not what I would do, I probably would continue on with the bigger story that I have, and maybe good old Littona will show up yet again. But for right now, she is in this cathedral. Leary is not here. It was a definite no that Leary is here, and we have this notion of the eye, some sort of secrets that maybe there is something in this cathedral she can uncover that will help her determine where he is, and that he has indeed been taken and is still in the thrall of whoever it was. Perhaps we may recall, if we do, in her backstory, Leary had left her for he fell in love with someone else, and perhaps he is still under the enthrall to that person, submitting to that person. Perhaps that person is evil. Perhaps that person is a villainous witch of some sort who has captured this pale one, this childhood friend of Littona, who he himself holds the key to something in her own backstory that caused her to become wretched and to fall from the grace of her aristocratic family and to be wandering around alone in the world, looking to regain that which he had taken. Perhaps she will reappear in yet another rule set on her quest to find Leary, to take Leary out of the clutches of whoever it is that he has been enthralled to and subservient to for all these years.